Greetings, Blood Bowlers, and welcome to the All or Nuffle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Blood Bowl. Greetings, Blood Bowlers, and welcome back to a brand new episode of All or Nuffle. And as always, I'm joined by Gary. Give us a hello.
Hello.
And guess what? Who's this stranger we've got in with us today, Gary?
I'm happy.
Steve is back. The prodigal son returns. Say hello, Steve.
Hello. How are we all?
And more importantly, tell us where the fuck you've been.
I have been in a pit of despair. No, I've been extremely busy for the last month or so with the hobby club, the When I Can Hobby and the hobby club, getting the last models together for the Paint-a-thon, where we actually came up and I got to see Baz last weekend on Saturday, where we presented this entire army that we painted, a 2,500 point Space Marine army that we painted in a 24-hour live just before Christmas last year, and I managed to present it to Mick. It was all for a good cause, for the MS Society. We raised money for the MS Society, and Mick was a chap who actually believed he couldn't paint. Oh, he couldn't paint, and he can't, but he's learning to paint with his other hand now because he suffers from MS, where he actually doesn't have feeling in the hand he would use to hold the brush and stuff. So, yeah, we painted this entire army because we didn't want a brother to not be in the hobby. So we painted him an army so he can get on in and get playing with us. So, yeah, that's where I've been for the last month, getting the last pieces out together. And, yeah, that's that. And then I obviously got to see you on the weekend as well.
What a treat. I bet you feel bad for slagging him off now, Gary, for not being here.
I know, I do. I was. To be honest, I was, wasn't I? I was slagging him off. We always catch up beforehand, before we go live, and I was just having a right old slagging match with him, and now I feel really bad. I was like, oh my god, I do feel quite shit now. Brilliant cause.
You should feel awful. But yeah, no, it's all good. So no, it's good. Hopefully we get back into routine again and we can get back into this, because
I think Gary has to make a donation to MS Society now.
100%.
Sorry, my microphones, my headphones are not working. I don't remember ever slagging Steve off. He's a very top gentleman.
So Gary, what have you been up to since me and you last spoke on a podcast? Because to say last spoke is ridiculous because we talk all the time.
When did we last speak on a pad? Was it 2 weeks ago? Did we have
I don't think you've been to a tournament since then.
Well, no, it was getting to that point, wasn't it, where I was going to one between every single bloody podcast at one point.
Yeah.
No, Global was the last one I went to, so I haven't been to one since then. But I have played a few league games, and I've played up in Barnstable like I normally do. I've played quite a bit of Blood Bowl. I did some painting. I actually got round to doing some painting. I had my mate Ed round, and we had a Saturday afternoon of painting. Just got all of the paints out on the dining room table. And we did 4 or 5 hours, and I think we probably painted about 2 miniatures each. But but it was good. It was good fun. We both hate painting, so it was good to just sort of almost force each other to paint. All the family stuff and work's just absolute bonkers at the moment. But yeah, it's all good.
Very good, very good. And Gary, you me? I'm just.
Let's not get him started.
I'm not playing nowhere near as much Blood Bowl as I would like to at the minute. I think since Bugman's, I've played 3 games.
Wow.
Wow.
On tabletop, and then maybe half a dozen on Blood Bowl 3.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
I know, it's terrible. And I haven't painted a single Blood Bowl mini in 2024 yet. It's just mainly been Kill Team for me.
Right.
But yeah, not much. I mean, and you know what my plight has been with dates for upcoming tournaments as well, Gary. I just every single time I see a tournament pop up, whether it's in Blood Bowl community on Facebook or at NAF website, and I think, oh, that's within 2 hours from me, and I'll just scroll over to the right and see the date and check my calendar. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm doing something else that day. Every single one that seems to come up at minute, it's crazy. So yeah, not playing nowhere near as much Blood Bowl as I would like, but still enjoying talking about it relentlessly with you guys.
Cool.
So that leads us nicely onto the topic of this episode. And Gary, this were actually your idea when we spoke.
Don't believe that for a minute. Me? With an idea?
Yeah, you said, why don't we discuss rosters and roster building, which given that, although we want all types of Blood Bowl players to listen to the podcast, we do kind of want to lean into being centric to newer players. And you mentioned that you had a lot of questions and there was some confusion around rosters when you first started. So I do think it's a really good place to educate people, or at least, open some doors of understanding for people.
Yeah, cool.
So just very loosely, we'll start with you, Gary. When you first started, without going into too much detail, when you bought everything that you needed, and when somebody said, "Oh yeah, you got to build a roster," was there an immediate like, "Oh God, what the fuck's this all about?"
It was exactly that. What on earth are you on about? So, 11 players, right? Great. Do I get given 11 players, or does somebody, is there 11 in a set, or is there just a standard off the shelf 11 players that plays? Well, you've got substitutes. Okay, we have substitutes. Brilliant. And this, what's that? Positionals? Haven't got a clue what you're talking about now. There was a lot. It was a very, very big uphill learning curve for me with the handbrake on.
And what about you, Steve? Being even newer to Blood Bowl than Gary, which, based on his recent record, is unbelievable, isn't it, really?
So no, literally it's the same kind of thing. So knowing I had to have 11 players on the pitch, and then you quickly go into it and you can figure out you've got 1 million coins and you can build, but then you've got money left over, and then you're like, well, what do I do with it? And then you've got loads of different things, like obviously got the re-rolls, and so do I need re-rolls? How do we? And at the very beginning it was a little bit daunting. Luckily, I had someone called Baz who helped me out. But,
hey.
but it was.
He sounds like a great bloke.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, no, it's one of those things like, when, especially bear in mind, building a roster for, a exhibition game isn't so much of a problem, because you can play whatever you got, a bit like that. But when you're building it for a tournament, I was nervous, because I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, and bear in mind that one was 1,250,000 coins, so you had the extra coins, and there was other words in there I hadn't got a clue what they meant. So,
yeah, I think it's one of those areas that, especially for somebody who's played other tabletop games, let's just say somebody's played 40k and they're fully aware of having to build an army list and all that business. I think because the shift in vibe to Blood Bowl, is so, Blood Bowl's just a really silly game. I think it maybe catches a lot of people off guard that you suddenly have to, do, a little bit of admin, some serious paperwork side of it, before you can play. The sort of struck by, it's just Blood Bowl. Why do I need this? It's just a sports game in tabletop form.
There is lots and lots and lots of tools online to help, though, isn't there? Which I'm sure we'll cover, but
far too many.
I don't want to scare anybody, because I know you said there's lots of admin and all that. I don't think it's you haven't got a 10,000 page thesis to write or anything silly like that. You do have a structure and you pick within a budget depending on what you're playing. But I think we're just going to try and give a few tips around what's the sort of right questions to ask. I think.
I feel
absolutely.
I feel like I got shortchanged. Baz made me write a thesis about the team before you even wrote. So why is it you want them? Well, the Imperial nobility first started back when.
Yeah, it did a presentation and everything. Where he had a little laser pointer and a clicker and everything.
I feel like I missed out.
No, you haven't. Trust me, it was shit.
Wow. Take back everything nice I said about him. He doesn't sound like he's very nice at all.
So I think in the episode structure that Gary put together, I think the very vague but purposeful question that he asked is why? Why have you got to build a roster? Why are you building the specific one that you're building, in that particular imaginary story? And yeah, I would imagine a lot of people, like I say, who have come from more serious games or don't play tabletop games at all, I would imagine they have a lot in common in the sense of like, well, why? I've got this box of players. It's enough to put on a pitch. What's the reason for me suddenly having to, either use this online tool or write by hand as some cavemen do? Why have I suddenly got to do this? And I think that what a lot of people don't realise is that when you create your roster, you're essentially writing yourself a cheat sheet for your team, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
and for your opponent if they're not very experienced as well.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, whenever I go to any tournament, I print myself a copy out and always print a second copy out for my opponent. It's just good etiquette, that, isn't it?
I think so. I think there's a lot of tournaments are starting to try to be a little bit environmentally friendly now and say you don't need to have 2 copies, and I get that, right? If you are that way inclined, but I do like to see my opponent's roster just because I haven't got a fucking clue what I'm doing most days. So seeing their roster helps me look at their models and go, right, okay, that is those kind of models and they've got that. I still haven't played and played against every single team there is. So, I'm still, there are still teams, probably there will be, when I go to my next tournament, there will be teams that I'm not really too, sure about. So having their roster in front of me is almost as important as having my own roster handy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I've played against every team. I don't think I've ever played against. I don't think I've played against High Elves. I don't think I've played against Snotlings. There's a couple that I've never even encountered. And I'm sure that when I do eventually encounter them, I'll still have to ask the usual couple of questions. So, which ones are these guys, and what stats have they got? Like things like that. So, like you always say, Gary, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It don't matter how long you've been into it. There's always more to learn, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So on these bullet points that you wrote, Gary, the first one, which I think usually befits the reason I'm making a roster most, is pure interest. You're not building it because it's a team you're actually going to use. It's just pure interest. And this is probably more common with people who've played for a little while as opposed to new players. But sometimes I will, just have a conceptual thought and think, oh, I'm going to quickly put that together in a roster and see what it looks like. And then I'll look at it for a couple of minutes and say, yeah, I like that. Delete it. Gone. Never to be used. Ever. It's just purely the it's like, I think we've referred to it before, Gary, as like Blood Bowl theory.
Yep.
Just the idea of putting these different players and rerolls and all these different resources that we're going to go into in together in a particular order or amounts of stuff and trying to get that synergy between it all and that satisfaction thinking, oh yeah, that looks like a nasty roster.
Yeah, I think when you first do your first ever roster and you are doing it with or without the support of somebody else, right? There's probably the reason you're doing a roster is because I need to.
Yeah.
Right. But and then that was what my first roster was. You need to have a roster because you need to know what your team sheet is going to look like and you spend your budget. But that will very, very quickly, and I would suggest any new player when they do this, very, very quickly it turns into actually a bit of fun. And like you said, 95% of the time when you're building rosters, they're rosters that will never, ever reach the table. And because of these tools like BB Roster, which is probably the main one I use, you can actually grab a blank sheet, pick a team, and it will automatically tell you, here you go, here are the options for all of the players that you can have with all of their stats. And if you wanted to, you can even add all of their skills. So what it actually turns into is almost like a little bit of a fun fact-finding learning exercise. The interest comes there. I think the first one or two you build will be because I have to.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I think after a time, I think playing is definitely the number one way you can become better at Blood Bowl. But actually doing some roster building is a good way of learning what the different teams do and what their strengths and their weaknesses are and what you can bring and what the options are.
No, absolutely. And then you could even go into as deep as, playing around with rosters with a specific team, even if you've got no knowledge really and not much experience with the team, you can, once you've got some basic fundamentals down, you can build one roster for a team and say, right, this looks like a roster for this team that is maybe, I don't know, maybe it's got more strength. Maybe it's, it's not going to be as fast as another roster you might be able to build. And that, then essentially, whether you realize it or not, you've just taught yourself a roster for this team that is potentially a little bit stronger. And then, again, on the flip side of that, you might build one where you think, I'm going to drop some higher strength players, I want all speed, and then you've added that one to your bank for that team. You've got, a roster then for that team that can play different. And that's when you get into, all your different play styles and rosters that are befitting to those different play styles as well, innit?
Yeah, absolutely. And very quickly, and it depends on if you're that kind of weird, funny geek that I am, but very quickly, and that you definitely are, building a roster turns from something that you need to do to actually, I wonder if I was to just take those two players out and put those two players in, what's it do to the team?
Yeah.
And actually, what is initially pure interest and turning into some level of learning, you can actually get some fun out of it. I know you get loads. Out of all of the different things that are in Blood Bowl, roster building is one of your favourite things, isn't it?
I love it. I absolutely love it. If somebody says to me, like, I'm new to Blood Bowl, can you build me a roster? 9 times out of 10, I just want to build it without any input from them whatsoever and just say, there it is. Like, I don't even want to say, how do you want to play? Do you want to do this? And I'm just like, yep, I can build one, done. There you go. Like, just like a fax machine, it just comes out straight away, like, straight away. I absolutely love it.
We did the same, didn't we, when we were talking about Wood Elves? And unfortunately, I was one of those annoying people that said, can you help me build a roster? Not you, can you build me one? So we had a conversation about it, and I started looking at it, and because I started asking questions, you're like, this young Padawan knows a few questions to ask. Excellent.
Yeah, it's such. It's like maybe this is a bit cliche, but it's like a sweet science, isn't it? And it requires finding a perfect balance with finite resources, which is just maybe it just scratches some on the spectrum itch in my brain, maybe somewhere.
Yeah. And what about you, Steve? Because I know I've played loads and loads of tournaments, so I've sort of needed to learn how to do rosters for. And I've even played in some leagues now, so I've needed to do league rosters and tournament rosters because they are different rosters. Mm-hmm. Have you when you first had Baz building you a roster, have you delved much into roster building?
So I've played with roster building because I'm now actually running taster sessions down at the store for Blood Bowl. So and I'm just
lovely.
Putting some beginner rosters together. So things that I literally have they're on the table and the guys can get in and play. So the roster building experience I have.
Hang on a minute. Let me just interrupt. I'm really upset with you that you didn't ask me to do them.
I need
this
to learn.
guy.
You got to cut the cord at some point, Baz.
You've just literally sat and listened to me talk for about 3 minutes straight about how much I love building rosters for people. And when the moment you're given the floor, you say, "Yeah, I've been building rosters without Baz."
So, Steve, let's just mute Baz for a minute.
Go on, I'll bite my lip. Carry on.
No. So, I mean, the thing is like, so my experience. So, one thing I find is trial by fire, throwing things out there. So, I've been building. There's only Black Orcs, Snotlings, Halflings, and Imperial Nobility. And to be fair, Baz, your Imperial Nobility one is just in there, like just taking the big guy out, and that's it. Like so, so I have used your input.
I'll let you off.
Yeah, but what it is so my approach to it at the present moment, because we're just doing intro sessions and I'm trying to get people into it and I'm still learning it. The way I'm playing or trying to play is like figuring out how to play or create safe rosters to play with to start with. I haven't got too many difficult things, so I'm on a different end of it where I'm trying to get people in and also trying to learn it myself. So I build a roster, and then the next one I'm like, okay, I'm going to chuck this in on this one to see what effects that actually has in the game. Because as much as experiencing and reading what what everything does and how it affects everyone, until I actually try it, I don't actually know if you get me, so it's like,
that sounds to me, Steve, like what you're saying there is you're a bit of a kinetic learner where you learn by doing.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm basically using everyone I'm trying to get into the hobby as the guinea pigs. So I'm just like, this is a really good game. This is a new roster I've tried. You tried this team out. I'm like, oh, it's doing awful. I think you just gained yourself 2 extra rerolls there, So my experience with roster building, again, like you said, is kinetic. I am very much that way. So it's kind of building the roster and getting out and playing it. So it's like I envy yourselves for being able to have that kind of mindset where you can build a roster in your head, go, oh, that's really cool, really like it, and then you throw it away. Where I'm like, right, I've built that roster, now I need to play that roster to see how it works. Even if it's just to play that one skill. Do you get me?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
That's how I learn. How things work. I have to try it out. So right now there's lots of people having all sorts of random skills added to players that probably shouldn't ever have them, but it's to see how it goes. So some have worked, some haven't, but yeah, it's that kind of thing. But yeah,
that sounds to me, Steve, like if you show me one of them rosters with all them extra skills, that my eye would start to twitch.
You'd be like, what is this?
What have you done?
And the rosters are there, aren't they? They're built and they have their restrictions for a reason. Like the finances or the teams, or because the whole point of this is that you're playing not necessarily competitively, but you're playing against somebody else, and it needs to be relatively balanced. But I love that thing that Steve was saying about adding loads and loads of random, various different skills just to see what happens, because a lot of the time in Blood Bowl, that isn't it isn't a thing. And one of the things we've started doing on our in our Barnstable 4-way thing that we do with the random teams is we've absolutely gone over the top.
Sorry, I'm just making a note that Gary travels to Barnstable for a 4-way.
I do. You're always welcome. If anybody's interested, first Monday of the month.
We can make it a 5-way.
Yeah, bring a friend.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
Should we just go completely over the top with skills? So normally in a tournament setting, like in an exhibition game, you'd normally get, like for a tier 1, you'd get like say 6 skills and a budget. But what we've done is we've literally almost doubled the amount of skills that you get for tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, just so that. And we've given everybody an amount and then a limit as well for a star. So we're almost forcing people to take a star with loads and loads of silly skills, just so we can just go a bit mad.
Brilliant.
The thing is, I think it's interesting to have that environment to play in and to be silly.
You're learning then, aren't you?
Because it's like, I was very fortunate when Baz made my roster, went to the Belter, and I was there, and I was, it was a good roster, and I liked everything that was there, and it worked, and I was like, cool, this works. But, obviously that's leaning on the back of the experience with Baz and stuff like that. Whereas, like, going and playing around with guys and messing around with things, it's like, oh, now I understand how that works. And then there's just like, okay, well, if you've got a team and you've got some silly skills in there, then suddenly, you could change a Snotling team into something quite powerful with a couple of silly. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can.
Yeah.
And it's but unless you have the freedom to do it, you end up always. What I find is you always end up making a team that's safe, or a team that is going to be okay. You fear to put the extra odd skill in. Do you get me? So what you've got there, Gary, you're like, yeah, let's just go crazy. Because then you're like, you'll add something and people will be like, what's that? Or how's that going to work? And you're like, oh, you'll see.
Well, that's it, innit? It's a really good way to cram in your exposure to different skills to be able to, know what that skill does, know how to play with it or against it. And you manage to do that in one evening if you do it that way, don't you, Gary? You're literally cramming in as much as you possibly can. If that were me playing that thing you do in basketball, I would put any capability to making a team win out of the side with skills, and I'd just literally pick as many skills as I could possibly think of that I'm not 100% on, and just force myself to use them.
It's just a one-off game as well, and this is the you're not playing for anything. It's not for NAF rankings. It's not for anything apart from a bit of fun.
Yeah.
So what better place than to just say, you know what, we're playing random teams. We're gonna, the budget's going to be a million, and you're going to have 200,000 for to add on for your maximum budget for including a star player. So you could spend less on your team and have a better star player, or spend the amount and have a 200,000 star player. And I think it's 10 skills for tier 1.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty much, it might even be 12, but it's pretty much a skill a person, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And a double skill, so stacking a skill, it costs twice as much, and a secondary costs twice as much as well. So yeah, some people might not even know what the hell I'm talking about there. I generally don't most days, but yeah, we'll go into all of that, won't we?
Yeah, but I think that's a good way to show that there are times when you'll be building a roster and the rules and restrictions are very definite, and then there'll be instances like what you guys are doing when you go to Barnstable, where it's just like, yeah, fuck all them rules that we know about rosters, throw them out the window. We're going to just go absolutely mental and, have some fun and, learn a few bits along the way.
You touched on two really, really important bits there, Baz. That so Steve's been learning by building rosters himself and showing people. So literally, he's been teaching others, and he learns from that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you've obviously just said, like, just exposing yourself to more and more skills. Not exposing yourself, Baz. Exposing yourself to more and more skills. I thought I'd get in there before you did.
Just open it rulebook to skills pages, like dropping your pants.
Yeah, like you. Why have I just imagined you doing that? I can't unthink that now.
Can you imagine? I've seen it.
Oh. So yes. So just expose yourself to these skills. Just use them and play about and have some fun, because unless you do, you're never ever going to get the chance to find out what they do until you're playing somebody with that skill, or until you're playing with that skill.
Yeah.
So, absolutely take the chance to casually play with your friends and have just pick some random skills.
Yeah,
I just came up with a really silly idea there. Actually, what if you just had a pile of skills in the middle of a table, and you just said, you know what, you pick a skill, I pick a skill, you pick a skill, I pick a skill. That would just be bonkers.
I'll tell you what I've done before that you might want to give a go, Gary, that were really fun, right? We had it so that the team was out of the box, like just all the default skills, until it came to a specific action. So if it were a block action, we would roll a random skill for each player and just have it in effect for that specific action.
Nice.
So if it were dodging out, they'd roll an agility skill, see if they could get dodged, something like that. And some of the stuff that came up were absolutely fantastic. So fun and so crazy. I definitely recommend. In fact, I'll see if I can find it. There's like a cheat sheet online, rather than having to flick through all the different random skill tables in the book. Like, they've made their own easy to use one and tells like a little cheat. It's brilliant. It's really chaotic. Definitely worth a go. It's really fun. So we've just mentioned that when you're playing casual play, you might choose to still play quite traditionally, or because it's casual play, you can go as crazy as you want.
Yep.
But there are obviously two other instances in which you would be building a roster, and that is league play and tournament play. To you, Gary, and even to you, Steve, I know you've not experienced a league, but just from your perception, like early on, immediately, what do you perceive to be the difference between building a league roster and a tournament roster?
Is that to me or to Gary?
Well, it's to both of you, and I mean, like
Steve,
I said,
you go first, because I've got a bit more experience in this, so it would be interesting to hear what your view is of what you think a league roster is. Obviously, you know what a tournament roster is.
Yeah. So I mean,
What the differences are.
So tournament, well, from what I understand anyhow, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong here. So I mean, straight off the bat, a tournament roster is you need to always have your best team at play. Generally speaking, tournaments are even if you've got injuries and stuff, or your players come back in the next game, so you when you build that roster, you want to have picked the team and the skills, the re-rolls and everything to be the best possible team that you can have out there. Whereas I see a league team as you've got to have a couple of sacrifices. Well, I say sacrificial. I don't know. The thing is, you're going to lose players as you go along. So you don't want to, you don't want to top load a player. You kind of want to share the traits across everyone. You want to have a fairly even team that will grow and develop, but also try and share the wealth. Not have it all on a couple of players. We want to spread it across more of the team. Now, that's the way I kind of look at the differences in building those two rosters. But obviously, I
think it's there or thereabouts, that isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a really quick way to sum that up is when you're building a league roster, you're building a foundation for a team that's going to develop, and when you're building a tournament one, you're building one that can the best developed team you can possibly build with the parameters of the rule pack of that tournament. In essence, that's the quick answer between the two. And would you agree, Gary?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in a league setting, you start off and you're going to play a season against the fellow league members. Sometimes you play home and away, as in you actually play home and away in particular rules, or you just play two games, or you might play just one game against each opponent. But every time you play, you get what are called star player points, so you can develop your team. In tournament, it doesn't happen like that. You don't develop star player points, but at the end of every game, if anybody's died or is off the pitch, they're back on again for the second game.
Yeah.
It's not the same in league. In league, you can lose. You can spend a lot of your star player points developing your star player. They're your best quarterback or your biggest hitter or an amazing runner, and some bastard comes along and kills them, and it's like, and that's it. They're dead. They're not coming back for the next game. They are out of it. You don't see them again. They're gone.
Dead.
Yeah. Dead. And it's some people absolutely love. There's a few people I know that absolutely love the development side of a league. It's almost like the story of your league that season. Whereas for me, I do like that, the developing your players, but I love the fact that at the end of a tournament game, no matter how shit I've played, I get my team back for the next game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I don't enjoy league play as much as I do tournament, or even as much as I do casual. And I think the thing for me is if you have a really, really rough run in league, say you're playing a 12-man league, you're only playing each other once, so you've got 11 games to play. If you get to game 4 and you turn up to your 4th game and you've got 3 players that are dead, so you're taking on journeyman, then you've got 2 more that are miss next game, so that's another 2 journeymen. That game of Blood Bowl you're about to play is just not going to be fun.
No.
It's just not going to be fun. I think that league play, as good as it can be, I think it can, at times when things really don't go your way, I think it can be really demoralising.
Yeah, and the thing is, especially for newer players as well, if you keep losing every game, right? Because newer players don't get as many wins as more experienced players. It's just what's going to happen. You don't get as many development points, which means that your team doesn't develop as much, and actually you're going into a lot of games after the first few where there's a real difference between the teams. And I know there's a thing called inducements, so that your team value is compared at the beginning of every game in a league, and if you've got a big gap between the two, you've got some extra money to spend for inducements. But even though you get that, it can be demoralising being a new player in a league. So if you are going to be in a league, I would absolutely get a good league where it's fun to play in, and actually winning isn't the main thing you're doing it for.
Yeah, definitely. Because I've played in leagues where you've got, I don't know, let's just say an orc player that's played for 30 plus years and he's just turning up to destroy everybody. And it's it's evident from early on that, right, he's going to come top at league. We're just fucking playing as filler games here.
Yeah.
And everybody's got dead players. Everyone's got injured players. People are having to take 400k inducements just to break even. And it ends up just not being very fun. So I think even though we're not really covering like league play as like, a process, I think it's important to make sure, not that you're always going to know the people that you play in a league with, but try to get in a league with some people that you do know that aren't dicks.
And as well as a league setting, a lot of people won't go to tournaments. I know, Nuffles Nuffles Nomads that we've talked about quite a lot. That's set up, to try and encourage people to go to their first tournament and to meet up at tournaments. But a league is something that probably a lot of newer players will probably be first introduced to than tournaments, because leagues, your local game shop will have leagues and they'll play regularly. So invariably, I think, although I might be talking out of turn here, but I think a lot of, like with your league, for instance, Steve, or your shop, a lot of leagues are set up for fun and to introduce new players and to get them to play. And if you're just going to kick the shit out of new players for no reason at all, and you're not going to let them have a fun experience, then actually, they're just going to leave Blood Bowl and not going to play. So it's got to be fun. It's absolutely got to be fun, and it's got to be a good experience, for that couple of hours that you're playing.
Well, no, the experience. We haven't run the league yet that we're going to be setting up. Hopefully, wants to get enough players into it. But on a similar kind of thing, we've done campaigns with Middle-earth battle strategy game, and that one is like you do get your guys are dead. But in that we're like, no, we're just gonna it's 2 games are off, but they'll be back in kind of thing. Like it's just because it's a little bit of a friendlier way. Like it's like you'll be hurtful a bit, but we're not going to make it horrendous for you. So it's small things, but I could imagine quite scary being new into it and being in a league with some wrong uns. It'd not be fun. You got to. So it's. I think it's like you said. It's finding just a fun, easygoing kind of league. And the people who are easygoing as well.
We've got our league that we've got is we're just coming to the end of our first season, and we've got more people joining. So it's going to be slightly bigger for the second season, and it's already set up and ready to go. We've just got 1 game left in the first season. And we've got a lad in there who's come along with his dad. So his dad plays, and he's a 15-year-old lad who's played. And he has been absolutely brilliant. He's enjoyed it. He's been so close to getting a draw or a win, and he's just lost every single game. And he played his last game against one of our good players, and he beat him.
Nice.
Proper, actually, beat him 2-1. And he was absolutely over the moon. I think the other guy wasn't too best pleased, but he just took it with the dice. But it's one of those. I think when you see that new player getting that first win in the league, and that how much effort they've been putting in, he's becoming a good, solid, beginner player.
Nice.
That's very good.
The thing is again, it's that thing.
Absolutely.
With the Nomads, with everything else, is about bringing people up and into the game. Because if we don't bring people into the game, then there is no game at the end of the day, is there? So you want
players is what makes it, isn't it?
So
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Nice. So in regards to roster building, then I know we've mentioned a couple of times about managing resources, but in reality, the only thing you've really got to manage in it, Gary, is your budget.
Yeah, you have a money budget, don't you? You have they call it a TV, a team value limit. Mm-hmm. So and normally in a league, that's set to is it 1 million gold pieces? I think. They call
generally.
It 1,000 TV, don't they? Which confused the hell out of me. Right? What on earth is it that they? Why did they put it into thousands? 1,000 TV is 1 million gold. Right, go and work that out, right? Because if anybody else is listening, I'm sure they're thinking I'm talking a load of rubbish, but that's how it works.
I'm actually looking at the rule book now to see what you're saying.
And in a tournament, I think you get more because you're never going to develop your team. So what you want is a bit of a stronger team. You want to take a little bit of a deeper roster, and you want to be able to take some inducements. So in a tournament, as all tournaments have a rule pack, and most leagues will have a rule pack, but generally they start off with you start off with 1 million.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever played in a league that didn't start with 1 million. To be fair.
Yeah, I've only played 2, one online and one on tabletop, so I've not really got too much experience in leagues.
So I think that's the resource that you have to manage is your gold. You know, you've got a limit on the value of your team, like a budget to work to. But another thing that, unless someone explains it to you, I think you could maybe not be aware of. And let's just say you're a totally new player building your first roster. You go to BB roster website and you're building a Wood Elf team, and you add a War Dancer, you add another War Dancer, and you add a third War Dancer, and that great big red triangle comes up, and you're like, oh, what the fuck? Why has that triangle come up? And that is because there are certain players on certain teams that you're limited to how many you can take. Generally, you can take a full list of linemen, usually up to 16, but a lot of the other players that aren't linemen, that are usually referred to as positionals in Blood Bowl, you will have a limit on, and the limit of how many you can take is usually reflective of how good they are. The less of one of those types of players you can take, generally the better they are. Most teams, you're only allowed one big guy. There are some exceptions in the form of snotlings and halflings that can take 2. And then your stronger positionals, like, again, the Wood Elf War Dancer, you can take 2. The only real outlier in this, in terms of a strong positional, that you can take, what I think is far too many, is the Gutter Runners. You can take 4 Gutter Runners, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, you can take 4 movement 9 Gutter Runners.
Yeah, and it's hard to squeeze those into to have a balanced initial league roster with 4 Gutter Runners in it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not impossible. You can absolutely stick 4 Gutter Runners in a starting roster and start with 4 Gutter Runners. They've only got 2 strength, haven't they? So
yeah, I mean, you could probably take 4 Gutter Runners, 1 reroll, and a shit ton of rat linemen, to be fair.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So yeah, you do have a restriction on some of the in Orcs, for instance, which is what I play. You got 4 big uns and 4 blitzers. In Lizards, you've got 6 Sauruses is the maximum you can take.
Yeah, and I think Lizards are another one that have obviously got a bit of a caveat. The reason you can take 6 strength 4 players, which if you were to tell someone at face value, you'd think, wow, that's ridiculous. But then when you add the caveat of, but the rest of your team have all got to be strength 2 with the skinks, then that's where you get the balance that we mentioned earlier from, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and this, we were talking about this before we pressed record, didn't we? That Blood Bowl is a game of almost pluses and minuses, gives and takes, and pros and cons. It's so subjective in so many different ways that the teams are all a mismatch of all so many different characteristics, and they're all just so different.
Very different. Absolutely. Did you mention when we did the stat episode, Gary? Did you give the amount of variables in a Blood Bowl game compared to chess? A 1 with 50 zeros or something like that.
Yeah, I did. So, do you want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, in an average chess game, every turn on average you've got about 30 options. Of things that you could have done, per turn, and in the game of Go, you've got 300 options per turn, on average, there or thereabouts. But in Blood Bowl, I think it's 10 to the 30, so it's 3 to the times 10 to the 30, so that's a 3 with 30 zeros after it.
Wow.
per turn, and I think, and to be fair, right, there is a lot of different types of pieces. You've got 16 pieces. Sorry, 16. Where have I got 16? You've got 16 turns in a Blood Bowl game, whereas you don't have that many in. You have loads more of that in Go or potentially in chess. But you have 11 pieces per turn that you can move. So invariably, you've got 11 times more combinations of things you can be doing, and plus your pieces can move in different directions. Like in chess, you move diagonally or horizontally, and sometimes with the queen you can do both. Whereas in Blood Bowl, you can move an amount of squares that you are freely able to move in.
Yeah.
So that's why, and they say, I don't know, well, in that bit of that article that said that, they said that was a bit of an underestimation as well. Some turns can be 3 times 10 to the 50, so 50 zeros after it.
That's absolutely crazy.
And this is the reason why where I got that from is that the reason why that's important is because loads of people complain that you can't get a decent AI game out of Blood Bowl, and that's the reason why, is because computationally there's so many different options.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it's just if you quickly think about it, like how every player on your team, every square they can possibly move into, that's a variable. Every person they could possibly hit, and depending on what skills they've got, isn't. It's just It made, when you first told me that, it made me kind of appreciate why the AI on Blood Bowl 3 is so shit.
Yeah. And you're meant to do that every 3 minutes. In a tournament, every 3 or 4 minutes, you're meant to rattle those moves off. So it's no wonder that people like me and Ed, my mate Ed, who's going to this next tournament as well. It's no wonder we just can't get a game in 2.5 hours. Sometimes.
Oh God, no, definitely not. I think something I do want to quickly cover is, do you know when you look at the team roster on like a sheet? You've got all the bit in the top corner where you put your team name. Then down the left-hand side, we've got player name, number, position, and all the stats that we know: movement, strength, agility, passing, armor value, skills. Off to the right-hand side, there are a couple of things that, unless somebody told you what they were, you could kind of potentially be left in the dark a bit. Do you agree?
Yep.
So immediately, the first one is the hiring fee. And if you go to the team pages at the back of the Blood Bowl rulebook, the amount of money you see right near the end near the beginning, is how much of your team value that we just mentioned that player is going to take. So if it says 90k and you take them, you're immediately down to 910k left of your million budget. If you take 2 of them, then you take 180k off. And that's what we mean about managing those hiring fees for each individual player, to get the best team that you possibly can out of that million budget.
Yeah.
And there is a few more on this right-hand side as well. Then you've got unspent...
It depends, doesn't it? Because if you're playing in a tournament, you don't have as many things that you need to worry about on your roster sheet. Whereas if you're playing in a league, there's loads of things, because you need to track, don't you? Every game you need to track if somebody got star player points, or whether they got a niggling injury, or whether they're missing the next game, and a whole bunch of other things. So I think you get a lot more in your sheet in a league roster sheet than you do in an exhibition.
Yeah, definitely. And since you just touched on SPP, the next one is SPP. Sorry, the next one is unspent SPP. Now, the fact, and do you know what? It's actually a bit of a gripe for me, to be fair, that they called it SPP, or Star Player Points, as it stands for. Why the fuck did they not just say XP? Why would they not just have it be XP? Being short for experience is a universal unit of measurement for how much of a type of game a character has played. I've been asked before, what's SPP? I'll be like, it's experience. It's as simple as that. I'll say it's experience. And for anybody that doesn't know, there are a couple of different ways that you generate SPP on a player. Off the top of my head, you've got SPP for scoring. A player can get SPP for being voted MVP. You get SPP for doing a completed pass, for injuring somebody, and is that it, Gary? Have I missed any?
Oh, you're testing me now, mate.
You sure it isn't Games Workshop being funny? Just want to own something, making a new word up.
Yeah, TM, SPP TM. Yeah, I think that's it, innit? For scoring, MVP, injuring, a completion. Oh, an interception. You get SPP for interception, I do believe. But that I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong. I don't do enough intercepting to ever know if that's the facts.
Yeah.
After your unspent SPP, so once you've stopped worrying about how much experience a player's got left to spend, I'm going to ask you, Steve, and I mean this in the least patronising way possible. The next column is MNG.
Yeah,
What do you think that stands for?
I have no idea. Like, I'm looking at it and thinking the next one after that is national insurance. Like, it's a. What is MNG? I have no idea what MNG is. What is it?
I'm going to let you squirm for a second because I feel like you'll kick yourself if I tell you now.
I want to say management, but there's nothing. You haven't got manager. You're a coach, so there's nothing to do with that.
It's not it literally, each letter stands for its own word. It's not a word being shortened down.
No. What is it? See, I want to look at it, but I can't. What is MNG? What the?
Oh, you got to let me. You got to let me tell him.
Go on, Gary.
Monkey nut gonads.
That makes complete sense.
It's clearly not. It's clearly not.
I'm trying to flick through the book to see if I can find it somewhere, but I can't.
Oh, get up, you cheating bastard!
I can't even find it.
Do you want us to put you out of your misery?
Please do, because I'm squirming a little.
It's miss next game.
Ah, that's annoying.
So when you roll, when you do a block action against a player, if you knock them down, you roll their armor, you break their armor, you roll the injury, and if you roll a casualty, which is a 10 or more on 2d6, then you would roll the d16 to determine how badly that injury is. Right up at the top end of that d16 is death. The player's dead. They're removed from your roster, they're dead. But right down at the other end, if you roll just a 1 on there, the player has no long-term effects. There's no further injuries or anything. They just can't play in the next game in the league.
Dead.
Oh yeah, dead. And the next one, Steve, you were absolutely right. It's national insurance.
No, it's your contributions for being able to play.
It's the tax that the league takes.
Go on, Steve. Do you want to have a guess at NI as well? We are bullying
harsh,
you.
You are, Baz. You are.
We are bullying you here a little bit.
Yeah. Cheers for coming back, Steve. Yeah. Just make sure you come along regularly, right? And then what we'll do is we'll just ask you loads and loads of awkward questions.
cheers for coming back, Steve. But kindly fuck back off.
No, don't, Steve. I'm going to tell you, it's niggling injury.
Niggling injury. Thank you, Gary.
It's not a problem, mate. I love you, if not everybody else does.
So, it stands for niggling injury. I forget what the exact roll on that D16 is, but if you roll a niggling injury result and that player gets marked as having one, it means that in the future, they are easier to injure again, or easier to injure again. Like, I think they get, is it a +1 to the D16 roll or something, Gary, a niggling injury off the top of my head?
I think it is, isn't it? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you get an armor break again, and you do get, not a KO, a casualty. Is it a casualty? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get a casualty, you get a +1 to that D16 roll to see how serious it is. So you're already at a bit of a slight handicap. It actually, I was really worried about it because I've had a niggling injury on one of my orcs in the league, and I was really concerned about it because I was thinking about selling him, dropping him and buying a fresh. But actually, everyone said to me, don't worry about it because orcs have got armor 10, and actually in the game it counts for absolutely nothing. It's just if the casualty, D16 has to be rolled, you've got a handicap of 1 on it.
Yeah, it's not as bad as people think. I wouldn't fire a player for having a niggling injury. I think if they got a serious injury, so a serious injury, Steve, is where one of the stats, so the movement, the strength, agility, passing, or armor, one of those, like you roll at random for which one gets reduced by 1 if they get a serious injury.
Yeah.
So I think I've fired a player before for when I was playing as Wood Elves for losing an AV due to a serious injury, because there were no way I were having an armor 7+ Wood Elf rocking around. I just fired him and I had a new lineman straight away. Like, that's too risky. But yeah, for a niggling injury, like, it's just keep him around and you just hope that nobody has to roll D16 against him again, to be fair. After NI, we've got TR, and I'm going to pick on Gary now. It's gone all quiet. It's gone all quiet.
So I don't know. I've got absolutely no idea, but I'm guessing it's team reroll.
Steve?
Oh, no, I got it wrong.
Well, no, it's per player, so it's not team reroll, is it?
Yeah, but I think some players can get team rerolls, can't they? Maybe it's not.
Or I don't know. I mean, you're literally asking the complete noob here. TR.
I know what it is. I know what it is. The only reason I know it is because of this week. Me and Baz talked about it.
That's why I asked you, because I knew we'd spoken about it.
Yeah. Temporary retirement.
Indeed it is. Temporary retirement. So, an instance where you would use this, I mean, you can use it at any time, but once you trigger temporary retirement on a player, that player stays on your roster. However, they can't play in any more games for the remainder of that season. But the benefit of it is that for the remainder of that season, where they're no longer allowed to play, their current value does not count towards your team value, which means that you've got a lower team value, which means your opponents are less likely to get good inducements against you. So if let's just say, like, you're in fixture number 8 out of 10 in a league, and you've done really well up to press, you've got quite a lot of extra skills, maybe you've maxed out on some positionals by buying some extra guys, and you notice that your team value is getting pretty high, maybe like 1,400, maybe even a little bit higher than that, or 1.4 million, should I say. And you think, right, everybody I play now is going to get crazy amounts of inducements against me. That means you're going to get bombarded with star players, wizards, whatever. So you might look through your roster and say, right, since there's only 2 games left, who can I afford to lose for the rest of the season and shave some of that team value down so that my opponents aren't getting as many inducements and, maybe make your life a little bit easier for the remainder of the season. But yeah, is that until we spoke about it the other day, Gary? Were you not aware that what that was?
No, I didn't know. So I knew you could sell your players, but I didn't know you could temporarily retire them. And the thing that appealed to me, because I was in a position where I've actually just done that, is that if you've got a player that you don't need for your last 1 or 2 games of a season, and actually they're just bloating your team value, then you can actually retire them. And if you're planning on staying for the next season of the league, it means that you've got the option to bring them back in if you actually wanted to. So you're almost retiring them for the season, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
And does it cost to bring them back in? And
no. So the only
no
stipulation
more than it would be if you were going to be buying the same player. Sorry, an active player. I don't think.
So basically, once you activate temporary retirement, that player can't play in any more games of that current season. So if you were to take that same team through to a second season, he would just automatically untemporary retire and be back in your roster.
Okay, I get you. All right. I mean, no, I see what you're saying, because then obviously, because however many points you have, they get more points, don't they? More inducements. So you want to kind of minimize their growth. But like, who would you temporarily retire? Like,
well, you see, that's a good question, because you've got to. I suppose it depends how scared you are of your opponents getting a lot of inducements against you. So if you were not that bothered by it, but you still wanted to shave down some team bloat, you might think, tell you what, I'm gonna get rid of some linemen, or on a team that can take goblins, I'm going to get rid of a goblin because they're really cheap, and they're not. Although they have a place in the game, they're not what's the word I'm looking for? Is it like they're the player you're going to miss the least, essentially.
Yeah.
But in theory, I don't know, you could look at your fixtures for the remainder of the season, and let's just say you're playing a strength team, and you see that you've got halflings and snotlings for your last 2 games. You might think, well, tell you what, I'm gonna cut my big guy. I don't need that strength 5 because everybody else on my team is already stronger than their players, and it'll save me 150k in team value, or like 125k, sorry. So yeah, it's very much about. It's very circumstantial. Like you cut who, one, you're brave enough to cut, and 2, who you think you can afford to cut based on what the rest of your season's going to look like.
Nice. I get it now. To me, I would be so scared to do it.
No, fuck that. Just temporarily retire your entire roster.
just turn up with linemen, just with a roadman, isn't it? Is that what it's called? Or
journeyman? Yeah,
journeyman.
Well, go on, man.
Yeah.
Does that player automatically get the stab trait?
Yeah, I was going to say. He's got a couple of stolen iPhones as well, so.
So after that is literally the last abbreviation. The last column just says current value. And what do you think, Steve? What is the difference between a player's hiring fee and its current value? Why do you think there would be a column for both of those?
So would that be like whatever you've added to them? So in skills and everything like that adds up to the value of the player. Is that right? And then
absolutely. So any skills that you add do increase a player's value. I think off top, please correct me if I'm wrong, Gary. If you roll a random primary skill on them, they go up by 10k. If you choose a primary skill instead of rolling, it's 20k, and then so on and so forth for secondaries and random secondaries and stuff. So yeah, the more experienced a player becomes, the higher they impact your total team value.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I got something right.
I think that's all at columns. Have you got the team roster sheet in front of you, Steve?
I did. 1 second, I'll get it out.
Is there anything else on there? Like, were you being, like you say, as a really new player? Is there anything on there that, like, you think, what are they, or what's that?
Give me a second. Looking at it there, so down the bottom, you've got treasury, dedicated fans, total touchdown, total casualties, league points, team badge. Is that just you make your own badge up, is it?
Yeah, if you want. I've never seen anybody do it, like, on the actual sheet, but...
Team re-rolls, assistant coaches, cheerleaders, apothecary, team value, current team value. Oh, that's the thing. So obviously, as you go along and your team grows and, it gets better and you add more and more to it, like, I suppose the team value is when you play against a different team, they get more inducements, isn't it? That's how it works, isn't it?
So down at bottom right, the reason you've got team value and current team value is because your team value is everything on your team added together, including any extras from like getting skills and stuff like that. The reason that you've got current team value is that any players that miss next game, they don't count towards your team value. So your team value is everything that's written on that sheet added together, and your current team value is basically the number of everybody added together that is actually eligible to play in that game.
Nice. Okay, cool.
And the current team value is the one that you compare with your opponent before your games to figure out inducements and stuff.
Nice. Cool. Yeah.
Have you got anything to add, Gary? Have you got any questions, Gary?
Have I got any questions? No, I think there is a secondary sheet, isn't there, that I've never had the need to use, which is all around the development of your team and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I've never used that.
Is that
the tracking of your games and all of that. I do stuff electronically now. I know there's a whole bunch of tools, online tools out there that you can use that that are free. The leagues that I've been in so far, uses Tour Play, which the league organizer pays for, and we all pay like I think it was about £5 or £10 to be in the whole season for the league.
Yeah. There's plenty out there to streamline all that, but I'm very much as easy as those things make it. I'm very much a believer that as a new player, you should learn like the grassroots way of doing it before you use all bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Just purely because that's always going to develop. Having to do it the hard way or the less efficient way is always going to develop your understanding more than someone saying click this link and just click these buttons.
Yeah. No,
Definitely.
Yeah.
For me at least. Like everybody learns differently, but for me at least.
For somebody that took the shortcut the first time round, absolutely agree with you.
Oh yeah,
I didn't learn, and then I had to go back and learn.
No, you just get your hands dirty, get in there, it'll be fine.
So let's just assume that somebody's built a couple of rosters, maybe played in a league with a roster they built, and they weren't happy, or they thought that they could have built a better one. What sort of steps, Gary, would you say that someone might take next to not better improve their ability at building a roster, but more so to improve their understanding so that the rosters work how they want them to or how they envision it working?
I'm not sure I fully understand your question.
Would you like me to repeat it?
Yeah, repeat it and just maybe rephrase it. Just because if I'm being completely honest, I was busy doing something else.
So Gary, if you got free chickens,
I've been rumbled.
Sorry, bear with me. I'm just looking how you kick somebody from this app. So what I asked is, let's just say that somebody's played a league with a roster they built and they weren't necessarily happy with how it performed.
Yeah.
As a newer player, what do you think the next steps are to improving your roster building capabilities, or even your understanding to be better at building rosters that'll play the way you want them to?
Cool. Okay. So I think everybody who does this is what I think you mean, right? Everybody who does a league roster plays a season in a league.
Am I speaking fucking Klingon? Well, that's still not clear.
It was, but...
Fuck! I'm from fucking Yorkshire, not Mars.
Well, to be fair, that's not too dissimilar, is
it? Gary, fuck you.
We're going back to this red and white rose thing again, are we?
We certainly are. I've told you I'm ready to start a War of the Roses version 2 any day, so carry on.
So I couldn't work out whether you meant in between games or maybe when the next opportunity comes around. And I think you mean when the next opportunity comes around to do something different, when you're approaching building a roster next time.
Correct. That's what I meant.
Yeah. So I think everybody will build a league roster, their first league roster, and when they've finished that season, they will go, fucking hell, I wish I hadn't have done that. There will always be a thing that you wish you hadn't have done. I think the best thing you can do is just go with whatever you've picked, learn from it, find what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and then the next time you're building a roster, then just make sure you try to remember some of that stuff. And if you're like me and you're pretty unorganized, and you don't remember this shit, just make a few notes. Just make a few notes about the things that went really well in your game and the things that really didn't go well in a particular game. And if they're roster related, look at your notes for the next season, or like a normal human being would do, just remember, and approach it with the new knowledge that you've got. Because the first time you build your first few rosters, you will be going into it blind, and you won't know why you're not doing certain things and you are doing certain things. And I think it's just time. It's just practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also worth mentioning as well that no matter how much we talk about, building your own rosters and putting some thought into what you're taking, switching and changing stuff, the be-all and end-all is if you don't want to do any of that, there are plenty of sources online, whether it's Bonehead on YouTube, who can literally just tell you what roster to play for a tournament, for a league. They can even tell you what skills you should give them for certain play styles. The information is already out there if you don't want to do the legwork yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is once you've played your roster, you may not even like the blooming team, right? So it may well be that you're going, yeah, cool. Well, the thing I learned about that last roster was that team is shit. Not playing them again. And that might be great for you, because there's a particular team you might not like. Or it could be that I loved the team, I just didn't like the fact that I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. Right, okay. Knowing that, what were the things that I liked about the team? What were the things I didn't like about the team? Can I do something about that in the roster? What were the skills that I took? When I randomed all those skills and I got shit ones, actually, should I have just been a bit more patient and paid double for buying and picking the skill that I wanted rather than randoming them?
Mhm.
And also the playing style, because it's very, very simple to say there's bashy teams and there's dashy teams, right? Because there's all sorts of everything in between. But there's different things that different teams can do, and you may want to just rebalance the team slightly. So like with Sauruses, you might have only taken 4 Sauruses in a lizard team and a whole bunch of skinks. You might go, actually, no, you know what? Next time I'm going to take 6 Sauruses.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think another thing as well, moving away from specifically roster building, but I think it's important that when you are building rosters, especially if you're in that zone that we were talking about then, where you've built a roster before and you've got another opportunity to do one and you want to do something different. One of the things that I have to tell people regularly is the best way to be able to figure out what sort of roster you should build with whatever team you've chosen is have a look at who everybody else in the league's playing. If you're playing a dash team and there's a shit ton of bashy teams, use that as inspiration for how you're going to build your team, whether that's what players you take or what skills you add to them. You might want to give them some bits to give them a bit more survivability because they're going to get smashed around a little bit. If you're playing as a dash team in a league with a lot of other dash teams, you might want to give yourself some more agility skills to maybe pick their agility or at least match it, things like that. So yeah, there are look around your league and what other teams people are playing, and you can use a lot of that as influence for or inspiration for how you're going to negate what advantages they've got against you, whether it is in strength or in speed, things like that as well.
Yeah, and another thing as well is the restriction of the teams that you've got available to you. So, Steve, you said earlier on, and believe it or not, I have actually been. I know I say this every bloody time. It's almost as if I've only ever been playing Blood Bowl a year. Every time I say that I've been playing Blood Bowl, I never get like longer than a year. So I've probably been playing over a year now. But when you said earlier on, Steve, that you had rosters built for 3 different teams, 2 of those were Black Orcs and Imperial Nobility, which makes me think that the reason you've got those is because you've got the 2020 starter box.
That's right. Yeah.
The season 2 box. So
he's
sometimes
got it twice. He's got it twice, haven't you, Steve?
What's that?
You've got this starter box twice. You bought it twice.
Yeah, I got it twice. I did. I got this starter box twice. I did.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Well, fair play to you. But sometimes you've only got certain teams left. So it's not as if you go, oh, right, okay, well, I've got all these 29, 30 teams that I can pick from. Let me think which roster I'm going to pick. Actually, sometimes you've only got 2 or 3 sets of models, or you're going to borrow a set of models. So you don't need to worry too much that you've got all of these options in front of you that are going to confuse the living bejeebers out of you. You've probably got a slim amount of options and a framework to work inside of. Just read up about it, read the rules, look at the options, and have a bit of a play around, and just get yourself a bit of research done, and and get a couple of different rosters and see which one tickles your fancy.
Yeah, absolutely. You got anything to add to that, Steve? And I think that this is, like I said, I think I said to you this morning, Steve, that we've got like a really good scope of like perspective and experience. Like we've got me who's been playing a little bit longer. We've got Gary the in between, and then you really, really new. So would you approach that in the way that Gary just mentioned, where you maybe try a couple of different rosters and then decide maybe that team's not for you, or how based on your knowledge up to this point, what would your approach be when building rosters? I know you mentioned earlier about wanting to get as many skills on as people for exposure, but if you are building a roster now, if let's just say I said I'm doing a league, Steve, I want you to play in it, and you chose a team, what sort of approach would you take? Would you still take the approach of I'm new, I'm just going to take what I think looks interesting and what I want to learn, or even with your lesser experience, would you think, nah, I'm going to try and build the strongest roster I can and have a good go at competing?
See, now this is more like a part of it's more a question comes back towards you guys. Like it's the thing is like I would assume going into a league, I would be trying to build a fairly safe team. Like I would, and by safe I mean knowing that I've got getting the blodgers, the dodge and those kind of guys in there, and the blockers and stuff, getting those ones in because I know how that works, and I would I'd probably play with a less. The way I look at it is, I'd open up the rule book. I'd go look at all the teams, and to build a roster, I'd look at the ones who have got the rules as a base of the ones that I understand. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like because there's you open up and you look at halflings, or you open up and look at snotlings, and they've got so many rules, and I'm like, I don't understand this. So for me to get the most out of a beginning tournament, I would want to be able to know that I know my team inside out, to know to be that over the 12, 16, 30 games, whatever you're going to play, that I would know those guys and their moves and their positions inside out, to know that I would have got the most out of that, to also then knowing that playing against other people, I would want to see and experience, how they've used those extra skills, or those teams play, what they've done and what that's affected me. I think that would then affect my second team. So if I was then to re-enter that league, go back in, I was like, I really liked what this did. I really liked what that did. I want to go that way with my team. Can I make my team have those skills, or is it better off picking another team or picking that team? Do you get you understand?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's that kind
it's a great question.
It's like, I mean, the reason going back to you guys is like, what would be, what's I say safe team. I don't mean in that way. I mean, like, put it this way, Baz, I played with your wood elves, and they were so just easy to work with. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
They there wasn't much. It wasn't too hard. The dice rolls were favourable. A lot of things are in the right direction. All elves with the 2+ and agility and stuff like that. Like it was that kind of stuff made it easy. But then again, if you came up against a strong blocking team or something like that, I know they would get bashed pretty hard. But yeah, I think it's find a team that you understand the rules of, build a roster around that, throw probably a couple of interesting things in, and use the league for the experience that you need to gain in building your next roster. But because I think there's nothing worse than having skills that you don't know how to use it, so you don't use it, and then you'd be like, well, that was wasted. Do you get me?
Yeah. And just really quick, Gary, Steve really just brushed over really quick then about how some of the dice rolls went his way. I just want to clarify that the dice went so well for Steve in my game of Blood Bowl against him at the weekend that to break armor and roll injury, he rolled double 5s 6 times in a row.
Nice.
6 times in a row.
You don't sound very bitter about it.
Oh no! Listen, I'm not bitter. The dice decided. You can't be angry at the dice. You can't be angry at the dice. But what I will point out is that I struggled to roll more than a 4 on my armor dice for the entirety of the game. So I'll just leave that one out there.
Whose dice was Steve playing with?
Fucking mine.
You obviously haven't been treating those dice very well, and they were giving you a lesson in dice etiquette.
So I think we've covered the beginner friendly roster stuff, and maybe, or at least hopefully, allayed some of the concerns or questions people might have. So now we've done that, so we'll just chat some shit for a bit instead.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So Gary, what after? So you're going. I don't think we've mentioned it since we've been recording. But you're going to NAF Champs this weekend, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
What team are you taking?
I'm taking Orcs.
Of course, stick to what you know. As you know, like Steve just said, your safest option. Who are you going with?
I'm going with. I go to play tournaments with my mate called Brian. who got me into Blood Bowl. A lad called Ed, who's also in our league, who I played, who was my painting buddy the other weekend. So Ed's going. It was actually Ed that managed to get us all in, because he got in touch with us a couple of weeks ago and said the waiting list for the NAF Championships is going down. You might want to, see if you want to get on it. And we all thought, nah, there's not going to be a chance. And myself, Brian, and somebody who Brian went to school with called Lee, we're all going. We got on the reserve list, and within 3 or 4 days we were in.
Nice.
Yeah, so 2-day tournament, 6 games.
Nice one. Have you got anything else in calendar after NAF Champs, or are you just taking one at a time as they come? Oh, go on then.
Yeah. I've got a couple in June as well. So beginning of June, I've got Excalibur in Taunton, which is what was my first tournament that I actually played in last year. So I'm going back to that one. That was where I met Andy Davo for the first time, because he was at Global as well. So I stalked him good and proper at Global as well, and I think he's I think he might be a little bit frightened of me now. I don't think he is, to be fair, but I did say hello to him. And I've got, at the end of June, I've got Troll Ball in Exeter. Yeah. Which again is a local thing for us. So it's Taunton and Exeter, both part of the Southwest League of the things that I've been going to. And then I am going to the Davitational Andy Davos in July.
Fantastic. What about you, Steve? Have you? Go on.
End of October. Obviously, there's we think there is going to be another Bugman's Full Beard Cup at the end of October. We think.
We hope and we pray.
I've got penciled in.
Yeah, mine's in calendar straight away. I've booked the time off work. I've put it in the calendar with the missus. I'm fully locked and loaded to get them tickets booked for that.
Cool. None of us are going to get any tickets now. It's going to sell out in 10 minutes, and not one of us will get a ticket.
No. As soon as we know things are getting released, I'm literally waiting. As I would wait for like an All Saints tickets or Spice Girls, just waiting for it to open.
What about you, Steve? Have you got any plans to maybe attend ones that Gary might be going to locally? Well, I say locally, but down your way.
No. I think actually I'm going to get Gary to send them all over to me because I would like to attend another one. I've got a dwarf team in the making at the present moment. I've got my orcs. I'd like to get them out and have a go with them. So I've got a couple of teams I want to get out and mess around with. But yeah, I'd like to get into a couple of them. We have the Hobby Club meetup coming up in is it July? July. Damn it, I forgot the date now. I think it's 12th of. This thing that I've been organising myself, you think I don't remember the date of it? It's the 12th of July, we've got the Hobby Club meetup. So we've got a bunch of people in the Hobby Club. They're going to be coming to Warhammer World, and we're going to have a couple of tables with Blood Bowl. So it'll be good to get a few games in there. And hopefully we get enough numbers there, Baz, so we can have a little competition.
Yeah.
Then it's, apart from that, obviously we've got October. I'm looking forward to that. So just going to be waiting to buy those tickets. In the meantime, I'm hoping to get enough people together playing Blood Bowl down at the local hobby shop so that we can even just do a tournament, and just, get, even if it's only 10 of us, to do, get some games in and mess around. But yeah, I'm interested to join you, Gary, on some of those events and start flying.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll catch up offline, mate.
And get the Nomad's banner flying.
Absolutely. Well, maybe we need to actually get a banner.
Literally a Nomad's banner.
I would love that nothing more than us, just all of us rocking up in October to Warhammer World with a banner. Probably get kicked out straight away or told.
Oh dear, brilliant. I mean, like I say, I'm still on a quest to find a tournament that's not too far away from me that is going to be on a day that I've actually got fucking free. Yeah. And it seems to be a fruitless effort at the minute, but I keep going on the NAF page like maybe once or twice a week just in the hopes that something new has been added, but nothing at minute. Nothing. The furthest I'm probably willing to travel is about 2 hours, which is based on how far you guys would be travelling for a full beard cut, makes me sound like a proper third world problem or first world problem.
And the thing is as well, is we talked about this, Baz, offline as well, didn't we? That if there are just 4 of you, even if you're all within an hour or 2 of each other, right? If you can grab a single day, right, with 4 of you, you can play a 3-game tournament in a day, find a venue, sort of somewhere in the middle of you all, like a pub that's got, a couple of big tables or something like that. I am absolutely certain, right, that it is not that difficult to get yourself a little informal tournament where 4 people can catch up and have 2 boards set up next to each other and just have a day of shits and giggles, catching up with some friends or some people you've just met online. It is not difficult. You
some
don't
people
have
you've
to
just
go
met
to a
online
tournament.
and hunted them down at a tournament.
Yeah. Who would do that?
Who?
What
Who,
kind
Gary?
of mad idiot would do that?
Oh dear.
I think the reason I was saying that was, Steve, is we're not that far away from each other. We're probably 2 hours tops.
It's not far at all. Like,
so actually, halfway house between us two. You bring along people, or I bring along people. We could probably find a venue halfway between ourselves, and just all day Saturday or all day Sunday, just have a day of drinking a couple of shandies and having a roast dinner and playing a bit of Blood Bowl.
You know what? That sounds absolutely amazing, and that's what Blood Bowl tournaments should be, in a pub with shandies and a roast dinner.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Fouling somebody's downed war dancer while you're chewing on a lamb chop.
Yeah.
100%.
You know what?
You've got to go grrr at the same time. Grrr.
Yeah. But you know what? That sounds like a really good idea. So I think we should get that sorted. I mean, I'm happy to travel.
I'm game for it. Yeah, I'm game for for driving an hour or getting somewhere halfway-ish. If it's closer to you or closer to me, I'm not fussed either way.
No, I'm good.
Getting a pitch out in between 2 people and just having some shits and giggles is just the most fun.
Yeah, no, it is.
Shall I just leave?
Oh.
You can go back up north.
Yeah.
I saw you last
invited, Steve.
It's all right. I don't want to come down south anyway.
I tell you what, I haven't done, Baz.
Go on.
I haven't found Bovril yet.
Oh, you need to, Steve. What's your thoughts on Bovril?
Take it or leave it. It's not the. I don't wake up in the middle of the night thinking of it. I've had it. I have liked it, so I won't say bad things about it. So, but yeah.
But Gary thought that Bovril was just Marmite.
Yeah, I did.
No.
All this time, I have not even bothered with with Bovril, thinking it's just a yeast extract, sort of Marmite drink.
I don't like Marmite. I am not a Marmite.
I hate it. Yeah.
Bovril.
Yeah, so I'm now on a mission to find Bovril. So if any listeners can send some Bovril to Devon, get in touch and I'll give you my address.
What we'll do is we'll set up a PO box specifically for Bovril.
Bovril. PO Bovril.
All a Nuffle, sponsored by Bovril.
Yeah, I think first thing I'd do is I'd be the first one to send something to that PO box, and it'd be a box of Yorkshire tea bags just to give you all some proper tea down there.
To be fair, I am a Yorkshire tea bag man. I do like.
Yes, Gary. What about yourself?
Yorkshire tea. Yeah, Yorkshire tea is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is hope for both of you yet.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, mate. Talking of weird things arriving in the post, mate. What happened to you recently?
Me?
Didn't you get a freebie off a company?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I'm absolutely convinced that there's someone's in fucking cahoots.
I don't know what you're on about.
I'm convinced, right? So
tell the listeners.
So I saw a post in Blood Bowl community Facebook group, and some guy had ordered some dice from this company, and the dice, they're the purple ones I used at weekend, Steve.
Yeah.
I loved them. I loved the colour. I loved the design, and they were, not to slag these guys off, but they were really hard to get hold of to be able to order them. They didn't have an online store. You had to message the Facebook page and pay by PayPal. And that works. That works. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But it was slightly less user friendly than other ways of purchasing dice. So I paid them. They said no worries, they'll be with you in a couple of days. And so I get home from work one day and there's a box on the next to the key bowl as you walk from my front door. I'm like, oh, my dice are here. And my first thought was, that's an unusually large box for just dice. So I'm thinking, maybe they were the only box they had or whatever. So I take it to the kitchen and get the obligatory kitchen knife to cut the sellotape. And I'm shuffling through all the packing peanuts. I find a little bag of dice and it comes with a little keyring and some stickers, like all the extra little swag a lot of them companies send you. And I have a little look at them, and then I genuinely, I was convinced that's all that were in it, and I genuinely went to pick the box up to bin it, and then I felt something else like rattle, like there's something else in here. So I'm digging through packing peanuts again. Lo and behold, a fucking dice cup. Now, my first thought wasn't, what a lovely free gift from this company. My first thought was, someone's been fucking talking to these guys. And I'm still none the wiser, because I messaged the guys and I was like, oh, there's a dice cup in my order that I didn't order. I'm just checking it's not been sent by mistake. And they were like, oh no, it's just a free gift. And I still don't fucking believe them.
I don't even know how to use. I messed around with your dice. I mean, that was one thing, though. I mean, as much as you don't like dice cups, you did bring it on the weekend.
Yeah, I did. To be fair, yeah, I didn't use it. In fact, I think you used it at one point.
I tried to use it once, but I missed the pad and the dice fell out the side of it. I mean, I still got a 5, so it wasn't horrendous. But I was just like, straight away, it's just like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get on with this.
So,
but yeah,
I think I'm going to be buying a dice cup at the weekend.
Right.
Yeah, genuinely, because I was using one the other night. It was actually last night when I was playing Ed. And I actually got on with it quite well.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'm still toying with the idea. As far as Dice Cup Gate goes, your Dice Cup, I just think it's absolutely hilarious that you think somebody in your community has done that, and nobody's going to own up to it, because probably none of us have, but the fact that you're still pulling your hair out about it is just hilarious.
I'm convinced. It's just, of all the free gifts they could have sent, it had to be a dice cup. Somebody's got to have. Somebody's fucking with my head.
Maybe it's fate. Maybe it's just fate.
No, I'm not buying that. I'm telling you. Somebody, because there were plenty of people who were privy to the messages where I said, I'm messaging them now, I'm putting an order in. All that would take is for somebody to say, I tell you what, I'm going to message him and I'm going to pay for a dice cup to be added to Baz's order just to see his reaction.
Who would do that? Who would do that?
See, if I knew,
okay, wait a second. Let me rephrase the question. Who wouldn't have done that?
Yeah, can you imagine if my order came and it were in like a massive box and it were just
17 dice cups?
Yeah, a dice tucked away at the bottom, hidden behind 34 dice cups. They just use dice cups as packing peanuts instead.
the whole dice cup thing that gets me about it. It's just like, there was one day someone turned up with a dice cup, because it's not in any of the starter sets. It's not a thing at all. I've never even experienced or seen Dice Cup at all in all my 36 years until the Bugman's Belter. And then I was like, what the hell are they? And there's like, it was Dice Cups. And you're just like, so who decided this was a thing? Then the next thing that gets me is people like, I think this is cool. And then it's now a thing that everyone in Blood Bowl, or, certain players in Blood Bowl, Gary included, are a dice cuppers. They're like cupping their dice. It's one of those things that I'm just always a little bit like, oh, that's a thing now.
Yeah.
So I have a folding dice mat, so like a tray, one that got pop rivets at the corners, right? And the reason I've got that is because if I roll a dice on a pitch, genuinely, I am knocking loads of players over because I'm so bloody heavy-handed. The problem I've got with the tray is that the lip on the tray is too high. So because you roll the dice, you roll them away from you. Well, the person sitting opposite you has got the lip of the tray that the dice have just bounced against, and they can't really see the dice.
Yeah.
So every time they're like, "Oh, what have you rolled?" So I find that I'm having to roll it against a neutral side that's furthest away from both of us, which sort of defeats the object. So I just want to pick my dice up and just throw them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm willing to have my mind changed by dice cups, but I had a very similar moment to Steve. Like, getting to that first game at Bugman's and looking around and being like, and just hearing all this hearing all this where people were slamming it down at the table. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
No,
crazy.
It's definitely interesting dice cups.
I wonder how many dice cups there will be amongst 280 players at the weekend.
Loads.
How many personalised dice cups would there be?
Ooh. Personalised as in to the person or branded?
Or to the person or something. Because they're wood or leather, aren't they? That's what they're made of.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could have a wooden one because it will just be too clackety.
Yeah.
I think I'd want something that's padded if I was going to get one.
Sorry, I'm not speaking because I'm trying to rack my brain as to who fucking told them to put that in the box. Anyway.
You're not getting anything out of me, mate.
Why, do you know?
I love it.
Right.
Do you fucking know? I'll tell you what, I'll get in my car and come down there and sort you out.
Yeah. Fucking hell. It's a swift journey down M1. I'll come and find you.
I've got a certain set of skills.
Oh, dear me. I'll tell you what then, gents. On that note, before we give Dice Cups too much airtime, I will love and leave you and let you enjoy the rest of your evenings or to go to bed, which is what I'm going to do, probably.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure. Absolutely fantastic to have you back, Steve.
Oh, no, it's great to be back, and sorry for being away, but I should be pretty much free now it's fortnightly. I'll be available, so not every week. But yeah, it'll be great to be back.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much for joining me, gents. And hopefully, between all the chatting shit and randomness, we did manage to help somebody, one person out there, even an iota of understanding. We helped them get some understanding on roster building. If not, well, I had a laugh.
Sorry.
I didn't help anyone. We enjoyed ourselves.
Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody, and stick around for any future episodes. No, we'll be back with another episode next week. Totally honest with you, absolutely no idea what it's going to be about at this present moment, but I'm sure we'll think of something, won't we?
Yeah, I think we will indeed, and
we will indeed.
People can let you know if they want what they want.
Yeah, the comments function works now. I got a really, not like a nasty comment, but a negative comment on the last one saying that the sound quality was shit, despite me putting in the description that my original microphone was out of batteries, so I had to use a backup, but they still felt the need to put the audio on this one was shit. But, you know, people are entitled to their opinion, and fuck that guy.
I would love.
Don't you sit on the fence there, Baz. Don't you sit on the fence, Baz. You just say it how it is.
Absolutely. And on that note, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers. Bye.